Throw as much money as you can in the direction of these shirts because they are worth every penny. Hi guys, welcome to episode 2 of Phil's Corner. My name is Phil and this is a channel all about football shirts. If you're new, go and check out episode 1 that was all about Fiorentina shirts. And on that note, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who supported me last week for the launch. It was a lot of fun. There was people watching along with me as the episode went live and then afterwards as well. Loads of people were sharing and commenting and just showing a lot of love. So thank you to everyone who did that. So what are we talking about today? We are talking about Umbro, but specifically what Umbro are doing in Brazil. And the shirt just to the side of me is a hint at what is to come. I mean, look at that. It's quite distracting. I wouldn't blame you if you just look at that for the whole time. It is a beautiful shirt. We'll get into that and we'll talk about Umbro more in general. I'll also be talking about this print, which you can see just to the side of me here, how you can get hold of one of those. It is one of the best pieces of art I own, and it's a really nice gift for yourself or for someone else. So we'll talk about that, and I'll start the episode as I promised last week by just responding to some of your comments. There were some great comments last week, so we'll start with that. But quickly before we do, I want to give a shout out to Kit and Bone. They're sponsoring this channel, which really blew me away that they would support me this early on in the channel's life. Kit and Bone are a great company and they have a real passion for shirts which comes through in all their designs, so go and check out Kit and Bone. Thanks again to them. But let's get on to some of your comments last week. So last week, Just Juve said, "Look at me, a Juventus supporter, enjoying a video about Fiorentina shirts," and this really made me smile. I hope we have some rivals of Chapecoense watching this week as well. We also had a great comment from Lorenzo Balestri, and thank you Lorenzo, because he correctly pointed out that I'd said that the colours on the trim of the 2017 Fiorentina home shirt were representing the French flag, whereas actually instead of blue there is purple, of course, because of the colours of Fiorentina. So Lorenzo correctly pointed that out. It might sound funny, but I actually really enjoy seeing comments like this where I'm corrected because, you know, we're all learning every day, and actually a lot of the time I don't see something about a shirt or I miss something, so I really like it when someone points that out. So thank you Lorenzo, thank you for that comment. William Addy said, quite simply, gold on shirts is ridiculous. And you're absolutely right, Will. Gold almost always looks superb. There's a couple of shirts which I'm really excited to do a feature on, to do an episode on. I won't reveal what they are, but let's just say there's more gold to come. Abertino had a great question. He said, what's your favourite Inter shirt ever? And it's really hard to pick a specific shirt because Inter have had amazing kits over the years. I'd probably have to go back to the days where they had their old school crest, the white serpent in the shield. I love that crest. It's one of my favourite designs. I'll probably go for the 86 to 88 home shirt. That was the Lecoq Sportif shirt. It is the perfect Inter shirt in my opinion. The thickness of the stripes, the shade of blue. So thank you Abertino, great question. Finally, Aidan had a great suggestion that we should look at PSV shirts from the 90s, and I really like this suggestion, Aidan, because 90s Nike shirts are probably my favourite period or combination of brand and era of all time for lots of reasons. Of course, PSV were also sponsored by Adidas at the earlier part of the 90s, but I really like the Nike shirts. I've got a couple in my collection, so I think I will dig them out. So yeah, I think we will do an episode on 90s PSV. Thanks so much again for your comments. Please leave more and I'll answer a bunch at the start of the next episode. Ask me anything. It doesn't have to be about the shirts of this episode. It doesn't even have to be about shirts, and I'll try and answer as many as possible next episode. But now let's talk about Umbro. Umbro are one of those brands who have had a long, storied history in football. I don't need to tell you how important they have been to shirts, to football in general. Very few brands have had the longevity that Umbro have had, and the great thing about them is that from a shirt perspective, from a design perspective, they are now leading the charge and in many ways pushing shirts forward currently and in recent years, and that's very exciting to see. And the portfolio of Umbro teams continues to grow, not only in Europe but across the globe. And of all the various Umbro teams, I've been particularly excited in the past few years by what Umbro are doing in Brazil. That's what this video is all about. If you haven't seen Umbro shirts in Brazil, you're in for a treat. I think it'd be helpful to maybe focus on one particular team to see that trajectory, that rise. And we'll go to Gremio. Gremio are one of my favourite clubs in the world for shirts. Those stripes and the colours, the light blue, the black and the white, it always stands out on shirts. Pretty much every Gremio shirt has something about it. And Gremio have been working with Umbro since 2015. Now in those early years when Umbro took over from brand Topper, those shirts were solid but perhaps not spectacular. But as those seasons went on, you could see some more things creeping in, and Umbro's attention to detail particularly came through. Each year I would say the shirts got a little bit better, but it particularly peaked in 2018. Now that 2018 home shirt was probably a top 5 shirt of all clubs for me that year, and that was a good year. Bear in mind we had Nigeria and Japan, Germany's away kit, but that Gremio kit was easily one of my favourites that year because it was amazing. Probably the best feature, and it was a feature that was talked about a lot during the release, was the cuffs of that kit. In those cuffs you had a really nicely done embossed word mark of the club name shaped in a diamond. It was so nice to look at. In general, Umbro have been known both in the past and in recent years for their cuffs. Whether they stick the diamonds on it or stick some sort of pattern, they always seem to absolutely nail it. The rest of the shirt looked great too, it wasn't just those cuffs. Simple things like the thickness of those stripes or even the typeface. The typeface was really beautiful. But of course, Umbro don't just work with Gremio in Brazil, they also work with Cruzeiro, Chapecoense, Santos, several teams in the top couple of divisions in Brazil. And the great thing is, like any good brand who works with multiple clubs in the same country, they create unique designs for those clubs. So in any given year, you can look at the designs from those clubs and it looks like a proper set of shirts, not just a recycled design in different colorways. Again, you might be looking at the cuffs or the little patches across the shirt. Just the patterns themselves will be different a lot of the time. You'll have bespoke colorways. It's just all the good stuff when it comes to shirts. Again, to talk about a particular highlight for me, I would have to look to last year's third kits. Now, we've seen a big trend in the last couple of years around retro-inspired designs. That's not a secret. We've seen it a lot. If anything, a lot of people have rightly been saying that they're a little bit bored about retro-inspired designs. Yes, kits from the 80s and 90s are great and deserve to be celebrated, but a lot of people are saying we're probably getting a bit too much of that. But with Umbro, what they've been really good at is creating retro-inspired designs, but with unexpected twists from unexpected sources. And in Brazil, it really came to a fore. Now, across all their major teams, they created third kits that were inspired by retro patterns, but many of these retro patterns were ones we'd not seen much on kits before. Umbro really dug into their archives and gave them a new lease of life for these Brazilian clubs. Of course, this Chapecoense shirt is one example, but going back to those clubs, we did have amazing designs for Santos, for Cruzeiro, for Gremio. Some of these were recognisable. The Gremio shirt, for example, you may know from the Northern Ireland shirt of the early 90s, but other patterns were much less familiar, even ones that were seen on training shirts or shirts that were only used a few times, and it was really successful. And I think they were probably the best example I can think of the kind of retro wave enthusiasm, but done in the right way. Again, it was that creativity to take retro designs and infuse them with the vibrancy and culture of the various Brazilian teams. It was a wonderful collection of shirts, and just one more example of Umbro absolutely killing it in Brazil. But let's get onto this Chapecoense shirt. It is one of my favourite shirts of my collection, not just from last year. Let's really get into the details of this kit. I know a lot of people aren't fans of plastic crests, but I really like the application here. There's a really nice raised texture to everything. I mean, just the design of that crest as well. It's the simplified Chapecoense badge. Look how good that looks. Just the pattern on the kit as well. Just look at the way the diamonds and the lines combine. It's very 90s, but in that colorway, doesn't it look good? Look at how the sponsor and the Umbro logo and all the details fold into the design really nicely in the black. There's other amazing details which I'll give you some close-ups of, such as this anniversary patch in the bottom corner. Look at the detail there. You can see all the different Umbro logos of the past. It's a gorgeous little patch. And I'll talk about the sleeves as well. We were saying about those cuffs, like the Gremio shirt, where you've got the embossed details. Here on the sleeves, you've got a similar approach here. with that crest, that Chapecoense crest on the sleeves. Wow, it is an amazing combination. A really funny detail actually, I'll turn the shirt over and you'll notice I've got a name and number of here from Everaldo. I don't know anything about Everaldo, except all I know is he's got a great name and a great number with the 77. But that colour looks a bit odd, doesn't it? It doesn't look like the right colour. And it's because, as far as I know, that was a printing error from the club shop. Now this shirt I acquired from a trade from someone in Brazil who was generous enough to send some shirts, and I sent some in return. This was one of the shirts he sent. He got it printed online at the club shop, and for some reason they seem to have used the wrong name and number set. In some ways I almost like it more. It looks silly having that another shade of light green to add to the kit, but if anything it adds a bit of novelty value to this particular shirt. And look again, you've got a couple more sponsors in the black, another little detail with the Umbro logo. This is just a really, really nice shirt. It's the kind of shirt which you can look at and see something new each time. And if you're ever able to find any of Umbro's Brazilian club shirts, particularly third shirts from last year like this one, get it as soon as you can. Throw as much money as you can in the direction of these shirts because they are worth every penny. So there we go. Umbro are absolutely on fire in Brazil. They consistently create some of my favourite shirts year on year, and they're showing no signs of stopping. So good on you, Umbro. Keep doing what you're doing. Before we go, I will talk about this print which I promised I'd share. And of course, in the middle of this print is that Chapecoense shirt. And it comes courtesy of From 12 Yards. Now you'll be very familiar with From 12 Yards because they work with a number of different people and their kit illustrations are really, really quality. And you might be wondering, why on earth is there a print with a shirt from Hackney Wick, Chapecoense and Inter Milan? What do those three clubs have in common? They're basically my three favourite shirts from 2019. And the great thing that From 12 Yards are doing is they are creating bespoke prints with any three shirts that you like. They could be shirts from the first game you ever went to or your favourite club, old shirts, new shirts, whatever they are. Pick three and From 12 Yards will actually create a print of those three shirts. So that's From 12 Yards and you can get those prints today. I'll stick a link in the description so you can buy one for yourself or for a friend. But that is it for episode 2. If you haven't already, please subscribe and like this video. And don't forget, if you leave a comment below, I'll try and answer it before next week. But that is episode 2. Look out for episode 3. We're going to jump back to the 90s. Thanks so much again for watching. Stay safe and I'll see you next week.